Hello, thanks for joining us for our True Crime series, a joint venture between Port Phillip Library Services and Sisters in Crime Australia. I'm Karina Kilmore, a journalist and crime writer. Today I'm here with Vikki Petraitis. Vikki is a true crime author and podcaster. She's going to chat with us today about keeping a professional distance when writing true crime, although she says some of her cases never let her go. Vikki, what is it about a case that makes it hard to let go?
There's several aspects to what makes a case hard to let go. I've got two in my life, and the first one is the first book that I wrote, The Phillip Island Murder. And what makes that one really hard to let go is that it's unsolved. So when you have a case that's unsolved, then there's always the possibility that if you keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, that one day you might end up with a solution. And then the other aspect of it is the other case that will not let me go is the Frankston murders. So even though that happened over a 7-week period in 1993, and there was a conviction at the end of the year, why that won't let me go is that I guess I formed connections with the people involved. But not only that, the fact that Denya popped up in the news and declared that he wanted to become a female, and then I don't know that he's doing that anymore. I think that was something that he changed his mind about, so I've been told. But then, of course, next year is the year that he's eligible to apply for parole. It's not to say that he'll get it, but everybody turns to me, and I turn to me too, so I'm not blaming anyone. But everyone's like, what are we going to do to keep him in jail? He can never, ever be let go. So it feels like with a lot of these cases that there's always more work to do on them.
Yeah. Vikki, just recap for us about the Frankston murder and the Phillip Island murder, just briefly.
So the Phillip Island murder was a case that happened in 1986 where a young woman called Beth Barnard, 23, is having an affair with a married farmer, Fergus Cameron, who's 36. He's a lot older than her. And one night one morning she's discovered brutally murdered with an A carved into her chest. And Fergus Cameron's wife, Vivienne, vanishes off the face of the earth. So the police very quickly concluded, and I'm talking about that day, concluded that with the disappearance of Vivienne, she must have done it. And there was a really swift kind of within a year, and then a second year for her inquest, they declared that Beth was murdered by Vivienne and that Vivienne suicided off the Phillip Island Bridge. And I just think that, no one believes that. No one believes that she jumped off the bridge, her body was never found. And so you've got that lingering mystery over what really happened that night, and just it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And since the podcast came out on that last year, we've had 1.5 million downloads. The last time I checked, it's probably closer to 2 million now. That people are really intrigued with this mystery because it's not solved. And when you've got a murder that doesn't have a conviction, I think people feel like there's a lack of justice to it as well.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the Frankston serial murders happened in 1993, and that was serial killer Paul Denya killed 3 women in a 7-week period, and they caught him the day after the 3rd murder. So he was locked up.
Yeah.
But, as I say, it doesn't end. The story doesn't end.
And what's it like to follow a case for decades? Because you've been following both of those cases, haven't you? And others. Mm.
Yeah, I have. It's an accumulative effect. So at the moment, I'm rewriting the Phillip Island book because when I looked back on the book that I wrote with journalist Paul Daly, it came out in 93, so we'd been writing it for 2 years, so 30 years ago. And I look back and I think this is a fraction of what we know now. And I also feel like people have become more interested since the advent of podcasting in this dogged pursuit from the writer. So Michelle McNamara's I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and people are interested in the journey of a crime writer, which I've never been in my own stories. So that's kind of for me stepping out of my comfort zone a bit, but also adding that narrative voice that says, there's something not quite right here and I need to get to the bottom of it. Maybe that's in a podcast form because you're giving them your voice. So I get these lovely emails from people saying, oh, I loved listening to you telling the story and your integrity and you just want to solve it. So people connect with writers so much more, I think, when they can hear your voice.
Mm. And how do you physically or mentally shut out these cases? For example, what do you do at the end of the day? Or how do you, where does your downtime come?
Yeah, that's a really funny question because for me, I've always worked full-time as a teacher.
Mhm.
And so with a full-time job, and usually I've been studying. So in my 31 years of teaching, I've also done a grad dip and a master's, and I've nearly finished a PhD. So I do not have downtime. And at the end of the day, I write. So I know that some people might, I don't know, do crazy things like put their feet up. But at the end of the school
Knitting or
day,
crocheting or
yeah, having a wine or something like that, but for me, at the end of the day, that's when and during lockdown, swap my work laptop with my home laptop and start writing. So I've got into this rhythm in lockdown where I might have a nana nap, and I qualify because I'm an actual nana. I might have a nana nap for 2 hours in the late afternoon, and then I can write till 2 or 3 in the morning. It's just my rhythm, and I don't question it because that's just how it is. So I don't shut off. And then often because I've finished writing at say 2:30 in the morning, I dream about it. So no, there's no shutting off for me for this kind of work.
Mm.
Is that bad? Am I going to have a collapse? I don't know.
No, well, if you don't shut off, you don't shut off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this might be the answer. What's the worst part about writing true crime? And then I'd like to know about the most rewarding aspect of writing true crime.
The hardest part of true crime now, and this has changed when I first started, you could access information. And so I could go into police. I literally ring them up and go, oh, I'm a writer writing a story. Can I come in and interview you? And they go, oh, sure. It was very informal. And then I got some people, some liaison people in the police command who trusted my work. I always showed my work to the police and they were happy with it. And so I got some people that could advocate for me when I had to do these applications. But by and large, the police was open door and I had access to information. And now the rules have just tightened. So to even get an interview from my next podcast on the disappearance of Sarah McDermott in 1990, to even get an interview with a detective, I tried for, 5 or 6 weeks and did paperwork and signed contracts. And in the end, I said, look, I've just got one question. If I just send you the question, could you just give me a written answer? And they were, all right, we can do that. It's just so hard. And so that to me is the most frustrating part, is just, it's like the police just shut their doors and you can't get in. So we have to go outside. We have to go to retired police, which is fine because they're always happy to chat. Retired police, we've got victims. So you've got to, this is my favourite saying, when one door is closed, then you find the one that's open. So that's kind of the hardest. And the most rewarding for me is always about the story. So I get to take a story and I get to put it in the public eye. So, for example, with my podcast on Sarah McDermott, this case has been a cold case for, not a cold case, they still investigate it, but no answers, 31 years old. And when I went to Sarah's parents and I said, I want to do a podcast, and if the current numbers for my Phillip Island podcast are any measure, there will have millions of people listening to this. And they were so grateful that I could give Sarah another go, that I could shine a spotlight on that case, and maybe people like they've done with Phillip Island might come forward. So that is the greatest gift, and there's no words that really describe what that means to the true crime author.
Yeah. Vikki, before we go, I'm just interested that you said the hardest part or the worst part about true crime was the making contacts with people. How does the impact of the knowledge that you learn affect you? I would have thought that would be something hard to, have swirling around.
Yeah, it does swirl around. I guess that's just how my brain works. My brain has an incredible capacity to store this. But because of that access to police being really, really limited, I guess the quandaries that I find myself in is when people come to me and they say, I know this thing, and I know that that thing is important, that the police know that thing.
Mm.
And to try and get an an entryway into, all right, so who do I ring? And luckily over the years I've met a lot of really dedicated police officers that now I know that I can go to them and go, hey, what do I do with this? And all right, leave it with me, I'll come back to you with that. So but I have uncomfortable moments like that because I know something that's important and relevant, and I just need to know where to land it.
Yeah. Fascinating. Vikki, thank you for sharing that with us today and for letting us see into your world of true crime investigations. If you'd like to find out more about Vikki, you can find her bio and website and podcast link in the information about this event. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks. And thank you, Vikki.
Thank you for having me.